Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, and good afternoon to some of you. Thank you for joining us for this panel, Decoding International Funding, How to Go from Application to Screen. I want to thank everyone who has been attending all the various DIF talks and events over the course of the last few days and watching some amazing films. Thank you for your continued support. You can go to online.diff.co.in to look at the other upcoming panels as well as other films and talks that are planned for the future. I would like to start this panel by introducing our panelists. At the end of the introductions of all the panelists, every panelist and fund will make a short presentation about their fund, and then we'll jump into a conversation between all of them. First, I'd like to introduce Emilie Pianta Essadi from Cinémas du Monde from France.
Hello,
And
hi
I have
everybody.
Faye Breeman from Hubert Bals Fund from Netherlands, and Miriam Henze from World Cinema Fund from Germany. Thank you all of you for joining us. Emilie, if I can have you start with your presentation, and then we'll jump on to Faye with Hubert Bals Fund and with Miriam from World Cinema Fund.
Sure. So here it is. So I'm here to present two main programs of cinema called Cinéma du Monde. Cinéma du Monde is a division of cinema department within Institut Français, which some of you shall know. Institut Français is an agency, cultural soft power agency for French government, working for Ministry of Culture and Ministry of Foreign Affairs. We are based in Paris, and the main goal is to represent and promote French culture abroad, but also contributes to exchanges. And in cinema, we have several programs developed for French cinema promotion and international co-production. And this is my part. So the two programs I'm going to present you today are La Fabrique Cinéma and Aide au Cinéma du Monde, which there are two very different programs, not connected, but we are working both of them, of course, in a lot of connivence. So I will invite you to check out our website, institutfrançais.com, and lescinémasdumonde.com is full of tools and resources and more detailed presentations. So La Fabrique Cinéma is a program developed within Cannes Films Festival. We are preparing now the 12th edition already. So there is an international call for annual selection every year in between September and November. It's open to first and second feature fiction and documentary films. It's open for emerging countries or countries where cinema is not easy to promote or to release outside the country. So for young directors and producers, we select each year 10 projects from 120. And the 10 projects, we invite the 10 directors and along with their producer to attend the Festival de Cannes. So the idea is to be really involved in the festival and to be promoted and to be connected with the whole in this international industry. So we have a close partnership with Cannes Film Festival, official and all the parallel section, and also, of course, the film market. So the idea is to give a personalized support to each project and to promote it within this huge market and help the connection and help them to develop their network. So we organize a lot of collective and individual meetings with the main key players of French, European and international labs, funds, festivals, as well as potential co-producer and sales agent. As the goal of this program is to connect with potential co-producer partners of the film. And also we try also to make a big part to the cinema itself and to let all the participants go to the screenings and take advantage of all the festival. And we also have each year a mentor, which is a Cannes awarded director. We will spend a lot of time with each of the participants and discuss the project. So the criteria, you have to be one of the 70 countries eligible. You have to have a local producer, but it can be from your country, but also from a country close. As it's a development lab, you have to present at minimum a first draft of scenario, as well as the synopsis, intention notes, director and producer biographies, and previous work. We pay a lot of attention to the quality of the work between the producer and the director. But even if they can be very in the early beginning stage of the project, we have to be sure that the team is very solid and involved in the project. Then we have a 4-reader team and 5 to 6 selection meeting, and the selection is given in February, right after Berlin. And yeah, the 10 projects come from South America, mostly 40%, 24% Africa, 10% Middle East, 22% Asia, and 6% Oriental Europe. Since 2009, we have selected 111 projects and invited 202 directors and producers from 63 countries to be presented in Cannes. 70% of the project have signed a co-production agreement right after Cannes or within the 6 months after Cannes, and 40% of the project have been finished and presented in festival and theater. So we give a lot of follow-up to all of the projects. When they are selected, we are doing a coaching before Cannes, and then after Cannes, we keep in contact and promote every grant, every selection of each project till it arrives in theaters. 20 projects have been granted by the Edo Cinema Fund, which I will detail right after. And a lot of projects each year are awarded and selected in a great festival like Sundance, Berlin, Cannes, of course, Venezia or Toronto. I shall give you some more examples, but we are running for the time. But we have right now, we had right now till last week in cinema Iranian film Yalda by Masoud Bakshi, which was a prize in this year in Sundance. He was at La Fabrique in 2016. So you see 4 years after he's in Berlinale and Sundance. Miracle of Unknown Scent by Alaeddin El-Jem from Morocco, which was selected in the Critics Weeks in Cannes. We had Indian film Bombay Rose by Gitanjali Rao, which was a long time ago part of this program, La Fabrique, in 2011. And she was selected last year in Critics Week in Venice and in Toronto. We had also Afe Maya Darin, a Brazilian director, in 2016, which is presented right now in your festival in Div, Dharamsala, and who was also selected at Locarno. Well, and a lot of other films that I invite you to check out our website for more films and follow up. I just wanted to show you the last Indian film that we had recently. It was Dominic Sangma, Rapture, which is doing very good. It was 2 years ago, but I'm sure he was about to present the film in short time, and also, yes, Gitanjali Rao. Now I will present you the other parts, which is, as I was telling you, connected, but not in a direct link. The Aide au Cinéma du Monde, which is a fund. It was created in 2012 by Ministry of Culture and Communication and Foreign Affairs, managed by National Center of French Cinema and Institut Français. This fund is quite important. It's open to the entire world, which makes the competition very high, but it's designed to facilitate co-production with France. So for this fund, the main idea is you have to have a French co-producer on board already. So there are 2 colleges. We are Institut Français working closely with the first and second feature under the first college umbrella, and there is another college from the third movie, and which goes for filmmakers from very famous to unknown, but it's also very difficult to get. So it's a fund granted 5 million each year. So all countries eligible, 10 projects each session, 40 projects supported each year, 4 rounds of selection each year, June, September, December, and March. I'm sorry, I'm going very fast, but you can ask questions afterward. Only feature filmed, all countries, but with a co-production agreement with a French co-producer. Shooting can be anywhere, but you will have to spend a part of the grant in France. I already told about the 2 colleges, so you can have detail. I will share this presentation afterwards. The director president of this fund is Charles Tesson, also the director of Critics Week section of Festival de Cannes. So the average amount for each film is 120,000 euros for feature films, and documentary it would go more about around 60,000. And you can have also a fund for post-production, just in case you have been rejected to the first part of production grant. So you can apply again and get granted for post-production for 30,000 euros. So you will have eligible expenses in production and post-production for the amount of money that shall be spent in France. Yes, it goes, there's no problem with any other co-production agreement with France or national funding, of course. The subsidy granted go to the French co-producer in 2 steps. And, sorry. Yeah, to give you more numbers, 2,475 projects received this grant from 135 countries. 1,557 for the first college, first and second feature. Yeah, 87. And I wanted to point out also that the fact that you have a French co-producer is also a good way to have a release in France, which is quite significant. So the most of the film got a French release, and from now we have been having more than 9 million of tickets sold by this kind of film granted by Aide au Cinéma du Monde Fund. Among them, one of the tops, the one who had the more tickets sold was Lunchbox by Ritesh Batra in 2013. And I also wanted to point out one of the last Indian film granted, which was Monsieur by Rowena Guerra. In 2018, he was presented and selected at Critics Week in Cannes. That's it. So here are all the contacts, and I will recommend you to go and check out our website, which also in this Cinéma du Monde website, there's a page dedicated to all the tools and resources and contacts that you can have to get in contact with all the programs that can be open to foreign filmmakers. Here it is. I hope I was not too long. Is it okay?
Thank you, Emilie. Before we go to Faye, I just want to mention to all the viewers, there's a Q&A box on the bottom right of your screen. If you have any questions for our panelists, please input the questions in there either as yourself, or you can input them as an anonymous attendee. As the conversation moves forward after the presentation, I will highlight some questions and ask them to our panelists. Faye, you can take it away.
Thank you. Let me just share my screen. So yes, I am Faye Breeman. I'm the manager of the Hubert Bals Fund, and I will talk you through it really quickly so that we can talk about it more afterwards. So the Hubert Bals Fund is part of the organization of International Film Festival Rotterdam. We are at the moment preparing our 50th anniversary, which is of course not an ideal moment to have a big celebration, especially since the COVID-19 situation over here in the Netherlands is not getting better. So stay tuned for more news on our festival edition. Some news will be shared next week on Tuesday on how we're going to go on and have our anniversary edition in 2021. And I mentioned also the Film Festival of Rotterdam because the Hubert Bals Fund is part of the same organization. And the Hubert Bals Fund is named after this guy, Huub Bals, or Hubert Bals, who was the first festival director of the Film Festival of Rotterdam, and it was his idea to start a fund. And sadly, he couldn't. He passed away shortly before the fund started its operation, so therefore the fund was named in his honor. What are we looking for? First of all, we're a curatorial fund. This means that we follow a certain curatorial line in the projects that we select. And this is the curatorial line of International Film Festival of Rotterdam. It's not always easy to pinpoint exactly the type of films that we support. So in general, it's a good idea to check out the lineup of the festival or the lineup of the fund on our website that I will share later. But to give you a quick idea, I can tell you the recently released films that we supported from the region South Asia is Nasir, for instance, by Arun Kartik, that screened in competition in Rotterdam in 2020. Children of the Sun by Prasanna Vitanaj from Sri Lanka, that premiered, I think, in Busan last year and also screened at IFFR 2020. And The Orphanage by Sharbanu Sedat, that premiered in Cannes not the last edition, but the edition before, and also was screened at IFFR at the most recent edition. And we've also supported projects by some filmmakers that are still working on their projects. For instance, Frantik Bastu, Dominic Sangma, Rapture was already mentioned, Paramita Dar, Payal Kabadia, and Abuza Amini. And at DIF this year, there are two feature films that we are connected to: The Fever by Maya Darin and Air Conditioner by Pradeep. So you could check those films out to see the type of films that we support. Then we support narrative feature films, which leave some room for non-fiction, but our strong focus is on fiction films, but we have supported some films with documentary elements or some hybrid films, but we do not support documentary films. The main reason for this is, first of all, connected to the curatorial line that we're following, but also the fact that there is a fund in the Netherlands called ITVA Bertha Fund, connected to the International Documentary Film Festival in Amsterdam, that is completely focused on supporting documentaries. So we always advise everyone with a documentary project to apply there. And we have a list of eligible countries that include countries from Latin America, Africa, Asia, the Middle East, and some countries in Eastern Europe. This list of eligible countries is based on the DAC list, which is the list of countries that are eligible for development aid. It's composed by the OECD, a monetary institute that defines this list of countries eligible for development aid. And we have expanded this list by some lists that are some countries that are ranking low on the World Free Press Index. For instance, Russia and Singapore have been added to our list recently because of that. And we don't only support filmmakers from these countries working in these countries, but we're also open for applications from filmmakers working in diaspora. This is a little bit complex because obviously some filmmakers who have double nationalities sometimes also have access to really big funds that can make their film financing a lot easier. Those projects are not a priority for us because we feel our funding is needed more elsewhere. But maybe we can talk about that a little bit more later on. I'll quickly talk you through the schemes. There are quite some rules and regulations attached, but I thought for this quick presentation, I would go through these quickly and then you can check out the regulations online. Our biggest scheme is script and project development, for which we have 2 deadlines a year, and it's a €10,000 grant for the development of projects. Then we have 2 co-production schemes, NFS plus HBF, a collaboration with the Netherlands Film Fund, for which projects that have received script and project development can apply with a Dutch co-producer. Then there's HBF plus Europe, supported by Creative Europe Media, the program from the European Union. And it works quite similarly, except that you don't need script and project development support in order to be eligible. And you can apply with a European co-producer and not just the Dutch co-producer. And then we have the Dutch Post-Production Awards, which are 2 awards that we hand out once a year during IFFR. It's a grant of €50,000 that has to be spent in the Netherlands on post-production. So that's it in a nutshell, really quickly, but I thought for regulations, it's better to read them online. Just a quick idea on the numbers that we're talking about. This is a summary of all the numbers from 2019. We received 867 applications in total, out of which we supported 35 film projects in total, with a total amount of contributions of €817,000. And I must say that about 90% of this is the script development. So that's by far the biggest category that we have. And overall, you can see that we have a very strong focus on first and second time feature filmmakers. This is also in line with the Rotterdam Film Festival, that also has a strong focus on new talent. 20% of the funding is allocated for more advanced filmmakers. And then you can see we're nearing the 50-50 split between male and female directors, so 43% female directors and 57% male directors. And funnily enough, when it comes to producers and co-producers, we're actually supporting a majority of female producers and co-producers. Then you can see that by far the most applications we receive come from Latin America and the Caribbean. And then South Asian projects amount for around 15% of the amount of applications. I think the spread between projects that we support is around similar. I think there's also a strong Latin American focus, but a little less than the application. Yeah, then this is the website where you can find all information that you might need. ifar.com/hbf, and you can reach us at hbf@ifar.com. This is an inbox that's read by me and my colleague Jessica, so it's only two of us. So if you send an email there, you will always reach one of us.
Hi, now I will just share my screen. One moment. So I'm Miriam Henze. I am the coordinator for the funded projects at the World Cinema Fund. And let me just move to the beginning of my slides. So the World Cinema Fund is the funding initiative part of the Berlinale International Film Festival. It was founded in 2004, and now 15 years later, we could already support around 240 films, and we are expanding and hopefully in the future being able to support more films. The profile from this fund is also very similar to the funds from my the past funds that were presented. Besides aiming at supporting films from countries with a weaker film infrastructure, it is also in our interest to bring diversity to the cinemas around the world. For a World Cinema Fund support, we look for films from these following regions or countries, where also the director comes from one of these regions and countries. And an overview of the funding programs that we offer. We support for production support up to a maximum of 60,000 euro, and for post-production up to 40,000 euro, which can be obtained in one of these different funding programs, which have a different profile depending on the structure of the project and also the financing structure. You might be eligible for one of the programs or even for more than one of the programs. For example, the World Cinema Fund Africa is aimed at projects that originate in sub-Saharan regions. And our classic program is also our oldest program. And for example, the World Cinema Fund Europe program, you can be eligible for this program as well if you have a co-producer from one of the European countries that are part of the media program, because this support is supported by the Creative Europe Media program. And in case of this support, one of the requirements is that the European share is a minimum of 20% and up to 70%. For the other programs, if you receive a positive answer, you have to have a co-production with a German company, but it is not a requirement by the time of applying. But we can talk about this also later if there are questions about the eligibility criteria. We also offer distribution support, but this is only intended for release in German cinema. So usually German distributors are applying for these funds. And we could, starting this year, obtain a further support that can be offered for projects from some other countries and regions in the African, Caribbean, and Pacific group of states launched this year. And also we are starting with a new program, which is a prize for an audience design. So the prize consists in a series of consultations, like a workshop to design your audience strategy in cooperation with the Torino Film Lab. So a project that is eligible for a production support, that is recommended, that receives a positive funding recommendation, is also eligible to receive this audience design award. So the films that receive a funding from the World Cinema Fund, there is no obligation to celebrate your premiere at the Berlinale. So the films are completely free to have the premiere at other festivals around the world. And it is also at the same time, if you're aiming for a release at the Berlinale, it is also not a guarantee that the film will be selected, but it certainly helps, of course, that the programmers from the Berlinale are aware of the films that were funded with the World Cinema Fund. And I just wanted to share some activities that we try to do around throughout the year in order to be in touch with our audiences and with our possible future project submitters around the world. So in forms of film screenings we have organized in the past, or workshops, talks, or even these kinds of presentations. That's why I think it's very important to have these kinds of space to talk, because that is one way we can get in touch with our interest groups. At our website, where you can find all the information about our different funding programs, you can also download our booklet, where you can find as a PDF all films listed that have been funded by the World Cinema Fund. So there you can have a better idea maybe of the profile of the kind of films that have been funded, and also a little bit more information about eligibility criteria and the different criteria of the different funding programs. So we are a very small team at the World Cinema Fund, and in name of the whole team, thank you for this invitation, and I'm very happy to be here and talk to you all further. So these are our contact information. You can reach out to us with all your questions, or questions about submissions. Our next deadline opens in January and closes after the Berlinale, so by the end of February, beginning of March. So yes, you can reach to us for any questions. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Emilie, Faye, and Miriam, for the quick overviews of each of your funds. I would like to start the conversation with, in terms of the application, what are the key things that are most important when the review committee is looking at the application? Is it the director's statement? Is it the director's connection to the source material, the script? Or is it always the script and then everything goes forward from that? So I would like to see what is sort of the thing that the review committee looks for in order to pass the project to the next stage. Maybe Emilie, you can start first from the French Fund's point of view, and then we can have the other two, Faye and Miriam, answer as well.
So for La Fabrique, we have many different kind of application, as we have received from so many different kind of countries. So we pay attention to any part of the application, and we try to feel the creativity of the project, the will of the director and of the team with the producer, the necessity of the project also, and of course the creative dimension and the personality. So we also look at the previous works, And as it can be early stage script, we have to figure out the whole application. And for Aide au Cinéma du Monde, it's different. It's more the scripts. As something important I have to add is that for Aide au Cinéma du Monde, you have to have already a French co-producer attached. You have to translate the script in French. And so the committee read it in French and make a resume about the lecture of it. So it's written. But of course, the scenario is very important, but all the other elements as, I don't know, mood board or previous works are also taking in count. But the first selection is on the script. So the originalities, the emergency of it, the subject, and of course how the director share it with the future audience.
I think you mentioned in the script, so the translation into French is very important for the Cinéma du Monde Fund. How does one go about finding a French translator who can translate the voice of the script? Because a lot of times you can do a mechanical translation, but in terms of keeping the authenticity of the writer's voice, are there a group of translators that the fund recommends, or does the co-producer take care of that?
This is the job of the first job, I would say, of the French co-producer, is to find the good translator. And there are several translators very specialized in scenarios. So yes, and they really, they know that they have to have a good translation also. So this is the first step of it, yes.
Faye, have you answered the same question as well?
Sure. Well, I think first of all, it's important to say that I think the criteria are a little bit different for the different schemes that we have. For script and product development, of course, it's different than for the co-production schemes. For script and product development, yeah, we always say the first criteria is the artistic quality of the application. And because we're supporting projects in early stages, I think the previous work is as important as the proposal presented, because you can read the treatment that's in early stage and then can still go many directions. I think the previous work is always the sort of proof that a director can do it. This doesn't have to be a feature. It can be a short, it can be a documentary. That really is quite open. For script and project development, I think what some people don't always realize is that we are really keen to support projects in an early stage. We get quite a lot of applications where filmmakers have worked on their film projects for quite a long time. They have a script that is maybe in a fourth draft. They've done some residencies, etc. And for us, for our committee, then sometimes we say it's a little bit too late for us to support the project because we only have a contribution of 10,000 euros, which is quite small. That's for script development then. And the 10,000 euros at the very beginning of the process, it means a lot. When you're going to shoot, of course, its value is a lot less. So that's something that we're really focused on. For script development also, we don't need projects to have a producer attached yet. It is important for us to know what the eventual plan is on how to go into production, but it's not necessary to have a producer attached at the time of applying. For the co-production schemes, it's a little bit of a different story. Then, there needs to be a solid script, and there need to be co-producers attached, obviously. So then usually there would be a local producer attached as well. But yeah, so artistic quality, really number one criteria, to sum it up.
Miriam?
Yes, I can only agree with that. For us, it is also the artistic quality, one of the strongest aspects that are looked at while looking at the submissions. We really encourage everyone to put work into the visual proposal and the director's vision, because the committee really enjoys taking a look at these and reading these to get a really good picture of the whole artistic aims from the director or the team. And I think it's also important to mention for the World Cinema Fund, we don't support projects in development, so it is only a production support, and it is important to submit the project once you have you are in an advanced development stage and also in advanced financing. So that also plays a role, unfortunately, while looking at the project. So if you submit too early in the process, or you have too many financing pieces still open, then your project might get rejected, even if you have, even if the proposal is promising. In some cases, the World Cinema Fund will give you an invitation to submit at a later stage if the committee detects quality in the project, but it is still too early to apply. So the best time to apply to the World Cinema Fund is when you are about to shoot in some months. The responses from the World Cinema Fund are always 4 months after the application deadline. So in that is the way you can plan the submission.
Great, thank you. I have a question from Kunal Mitra and a couple of other attendees as well. How much importance is, since all your funds grant funding to first-time filmmakers, how much importance does the previous body of work take place? And if a filmmaker, Faye, I think you mentioned, if a filmmaker hasn't done a fiction feature film, you look at other work. But what if it's not in the moving image? What if it's a photographer making their first time feature? Or what if it's a visual artist making their first time feature? Or another example, a costume designer who has worked on several films as a costume designer, but it's her first film as a director. Like, what level of importance and what kind of previous work submissions do you accept?
Shall I say something about that? So for us, especially for development support, it is necessary that there is some kind of audiovisual previous work available that the applicant has made as a director. So it can definitely be a short. It can also be, we've received some more sort of film art pieces that are also definitely acceptable, but we want to see what they can do as a director, especially because we support projects in a very early stage. It is, and you know, a project usually can go so many directions that you need to have some kind of idea of a director's capabilities. So yeah, a director's credit is mandatory when applying for development support at the HPF and for the other schemes as well.
So to follow up on that question as well, I guess the other question is, how much importance is placed on the co-producers' prior work, and what level of support the fund has given to their productions, and if those productions ever got made or didn't get made, and how does that influence the body of work from the applicant's country or the person applying? So is there more weightage for who the co-producer is and their body of work and the kind of movies they've made, or is the weightage still on the person who is the writer director or the writer and the where the story comes from?
Yes, I would say, again, this is a balance among all the elements, and depending also on the trajectory of the director and the producer. From some countries, a co-producer who will not find partners, regional partners, or any money at all, and we know that the context is possible for that kind of work, we would have the feeling that it is not worked well properly. So yeah, we have to feel the intention, and I will go back again on the stage of application, because if you apply too early, you will, maybe your project is very strong and good, but in comparison with another project who have been worked and developed longer, it will be weaker. So you have to be at the, you have to be working on your project for a while, and I've been turning it around to find all possibilities, and then your application will give a boost, and our program will give a boost, but it cannot be at the very beginning of the project, even though for the writing of the scripts, we really understand that it can be, it's a long process. So maybe it's your third version, but you will have 5 more versions of the script till the end. So it's a combination of many elements. And for La Fabrique, as we present the project in Cannes, we need to be sure that the project is ready to be shared, and that he will find partners. If the project gives not confidence in the way that it will be managed in terms of production or in terms of a direction, artistic directions, then nobody will pay attention. So even if the idea is brilliant and there's talent, the project has to have been matured a while and worked among the team of director and producer. So, and for the material, yeah, it can be anything, but because also we understand that in some countries it's not easy to make short film, and some other countries, if you want to begin with a feature film without doing any short film, it would be strange. So yes, we can see, I think that the very important thing is to feel that the reality of the project, it's not good to try to present it more, or I prefer, for instance, to someone who will send me a previous work and who would say, I'm not very proud of it because that. And then I can imagine what he wants to do with the next work. But I need to trust him. I need to trust in these projects. That's the main idea.
Thank you. I think that's very helpful to understand. I guess another question I have for all of you is, what about refugee filmmakers? Filmmakers who were from one country, but because of their circumstances were forced to move and go to another country and possibly even seek citizenship or residency. How does that affect the funding application? I think you did kind of draw attention to filmmakers who have dual citizenships, but it's not always the case that even though they live in a country, let's say like UK or America or Canada or Australia, that they might necessarily have access to the funding. So how does each of your funds views those applications from such filmmakers?
Should I answer first? Yes, it is totally possible to apply as a filmmaker if you are living in diaspora, and these are reviewed on a case-by-case basis by the World Cinema Fund, and it is in most of the cases it is possible if nothing in the project speaks against it.
For us, as I always say, we are not asking ID papers of any kind, so we just want to be sure that we will support a project who will need it. Of course, if you live and studied in the United States for many years and you have, and United States maybe it's not the perfect example, but I mean, if you have other ways to finance and be produced, yes, we would prefer them to go to another project who really needs that that support. But yeah, we have so many different trajectories, and yes, no, we don't. Yes, we work with diaspora and many complex stories.
So a filmmaker who's living in these countries would sort of need to make their case in their application, saying why they don't have access to the funding. So that's something that's important to highlight, that, hey, even though I live in Australia, I don't have access to these fundings because of X, Y, and Z. So that's important information for you.
Yeah, we have to understand the whole thing.
Okay. Great.
But if I can say something about that as well, we are like specifically open for diaspora applications, but it's not always a cut clear case. We've had applications where actually they were applying to research their financing strategy, which is, you know, a question for the selection committee to deal with and think if that is something they want our funding to be spent towards. So especially with, I think with filmmakers who are not currently living in the country where they want to make a film, it's not that difficult. That happens quite a lot. I think with filmmakers who are sort of in between nationalities and also want to make sort of cross-cultural films that won't really have one nationality, then it becomes a little bit more complicated. So I think we look at it at a case-by-case basis. And I do think what you say, it's important to look at it also from a financing point of view, and look at what is feasible and what's not. But especially when we are supporting projects for development, it's not always clear yet. So that's maybe good to say.
Okay, Faye, I have a follow-up question for you. Is the Script and Project Development Fund open to first-time screenwriters who might be looking for an experienced director and or a producer? This question's from Ishan Mahapatra.
We are only open to receive applications where a director is already attached. Because, and this is in line with our curatorial line, we want to support what we call director-driven cinema. So a director's perspective is super important in that. So if a screenwriter is still looking for a director, I would advise them to wait and apply when the director is attached. When it comes to producers, we're totally open to receiving applications without producers attached.
A question from Miriam. It's from Vivek Chaudhary, who noticed that India is not on the eligible list of regions or countries for Berlinale. Can filmmakers from India or Indian diaspora apply?
Yes, so India is not an eligible country to apply, but the region surrounding. I guess this would also be reviewed by a case-by-case basis, depending on the circumstances and also depending on the needs of the project and yes, the whole situation as a package.
Okay, a question for all of you. How are cold entries treated? Or do you prefer cold entries, meaning if someone applies without contacting you and it's just an application submission online, in some cases they might have a co-producer in case of these, some of the other funds, but for the project development fund and let's say for La Fabrique and even World Cinema Fund, they might not have a co-producer. So how does a cold entry get treated once it's applied? And could you talk a little bit about the process? What happens once the application has been submitted, how does it move through each of your funds? Faye, maybe in your case, if you can just pick one of the funds and highlight that, I think that'd be good.
So shall I start then?
Yeah, you can start.
Okay, so since we receive around 800 applications per year, actually the majority of applications that we receive are cold applications. And I think when you look at our the projects that we support, I do think that 60 to 70% are filmmakers that have had maybe more like 60% that have had film screen at a more well-known festival, including the Festival of Rotterdam. But we also definitely support filmmakers that we have never met, that we haven't been in touch with, and that have just applied. That definitely happens. So yeah, that's really an opportunity. And the other question that you had is how we then go through, how the process works, basically. So I'll share the process for script and project development because that's the most popular scheme. Because we have a two-step application procedure. First, you apply with a really short application with just a synopsis, a director's statement, and some information on the track record and previous work. And then out of those applications, we make a pre-selection where we look at the feasibility, the quality of the previous work, the quality of the synopsis, and also I saw also in the Q&A that someone asked like, what is a specific type of cinema that you're looking to support? We do get quite a lot of applications for instance, what we call cinema aimed for the local market. So romantic comedies, thrillers, aimed at a sort of bigger audience. We also filter those ones out because we really want to support artistic cinema. So after step one, around 50 to 60% of the applications gets invited to send in a full dossier with a treatment and more elaborate biographies, finance plan, budget, well, the whole shebang basically. And then we have a selection committee made up of film professionals out of all of the regions that we support projects in, and IFFR staff, and they then make a decision in 3 steps. And actually tomorrow we're going to make the decision on the well, Northern Hemisphere autumn deadline. So and then every step we, I think, bring down the list by half to end up with around 10 projects per selection round for script development.
Thank you. Faye and sorry, Emilie and then Miriam, please.
On the process of selection, yes, the cold entries, we receive 120. Yes, we close the application at 120 for La Fabrique. We, at this stage, they do not need co-producer. If they have, it's okay. But what they need is a local producer, someone from their country or country around, with which they have a real strong relationship in production. Because that way we also support not only the director and the project, but also the local industry. So most of the project, we don't know them, and we are very happy not to know them and discover them. So there's no preference with projects going along with people we know. Of course, it can be a good sign if they are in contact with someone, a producer already known, of course. But we try to give room to any kind of newcomer also, of course, it's important. And then, yes, also we have 4 readers at La Fabrique, and we organize sessions from a region like Latin America, Asia, Africa, and then we go. selecting and selecting, and the two last one are the worst because we have to only take 10 projects, as we could have the double, of course. And for Cinéma du Monde process, it's different. It's around 90 application each 3 months, and from the 90, the readers make resume from there. They read all the script, they make resume from that. Their arguments, they discuss the resume with there are 2 readers reading every project, any project, and then from the 90, only 30 will go to the main committee, and then for the main committee, every member will read the project, and from the 30 there will be 10 for each round.
And Miriam?
We have 2 deadlines per year. One, as I said, at the end of February, and the second one in July. And we receive around 400 projects submissions in total, so around 200 per round. And the process works like this. Projects are submitted, and then the first confirmation is to confirm that you are eligible based on the criteria and all the requirements, if the requirements are being met. And then in these 4 months, there's also a group of readers to start looking at the projects closer, and in that process, if there are questions, in some cases, if some very important aspects of the project submission aren't clear yet, then we might reach out to these to the filmmakers or to the producers to clarify, or if there are any important updates, also all producers are welcome to submit any updates in the financing or the development of the project in that process. But it is just one submission. There is not an official date to resend documents, and then the jury will finally meet and decide on the projects 4 months later.
And could all of you, sorry, go ahead.
No, I just wanted, I think the question was, came up before in terms of who should apply, and if it is needed that the German producer is on board already in the World Cinema Fund. The submission can be made by the local production company. It is required that there is a production company. And then if you have a German co-producer already on board, he could also make the application, but this is not necessary, and it also doesn't influence the selection process.
Could all of you just clarify with the head nod that you do require the budgets to be in the local currency as well as in euros, just so that everyone sort of knows that. I guess we have a couple more questions. One question for everyone, actually both the questions for all of you. First one being, how has the pandemic influenced the funding of films, and how much stress has it put on co-production markets in your respective countries?
Shall I start again, since that's the order that we did before? I think what we have seen, the first sort of result is that a lot of filmmakers have been working on plans during the pandemic, because our first post-pandemic deadline for development had double the amount of applications than we usually receive. So that's quite shocking. Of course, also, I do think it's, you know, something positive that people have been taking the time to write down their plans. So I think that's the first thing that we have noticed. And second of all, of course, a lot of production dates have moved back, or some productions have had to stop halfway through. This is, of course, you know, something that we will follow for the longer term. think in a lot of places it will be very difficult to go back to a normal sort of production situation. So I guess the numbers of films that we will see will really go down substantially. An interesting thing that has happened because of the pandemic is that for the scheme that we have with Creative Europe is usually a very bureaucratic and a strict organization with very little room for flexibility. So our HBF Plus Europe scheme has a very strict deadline by which the film has to be delivered and our final payment has to be made. But now, because of the pandemic, a force majeure clause in the contract has been triggered. So now, all of a sudden, we've become way more flexible on that scheme. So I guess that's also quite positive, but at the same time very necessary, because the films that hadn't been produced yet for the current cycles, of course, aren't going into production anytime soon, or at least will have difficulty doing so. And some films also have lost private investors, for instance. So yeah, I think there will be long-term consequences for sure.
Yes, I can also agree with that. We on the last submission round, which was in July, we didn't see necessarily a significant reduction in submissions. I guess the whole effect will be felt more stronger in the coming years. But we have seen as some immediate effects are also on the projects that are currently receiving funding from the World Cinema Fund, where shootings have been postponed, of course, and it is uncertain when shooting can be restarted and so on. And filmmakers aren't able to travel between countries and so on. So we have had some well, internally, we have to negotiate a little bit with our funding programs, as Faye mentioned, the strict deadlines that we have to follow. But since this is a situation that's an exceptional situation, yes, I think we should be able to sort everything out.
From my part, I would say for La Fabrique, we received more application in less time. So that was quite significant of like kind of rush and emergency. Of course, as theaters are closed again from last week, the impact will not necessarily be in the next months, as the National Center of Cinema is quite solid in France, and with a strong politic of supporting cultural industries. But National Center of Cinema takes a lot of its funding on the theatrical tickets. So as the theater are closed, it will be like a succession of consequences. So I cannot say right now, because for now the state support are quite strong, but yeah, it's not very good for. But then what is positive is that the connection still are very effective. Maybe we are invited to talk in many festivals that are online, and then we would not go to so many festivals, but we are invited online, so we can maybe exchange more and share things differently. But yes, we have the deal between platforms and theaters, which is the whole for now the architecture of the economy of the cinema in France is based on the theaters mostly. So it's gonna be a big change, and let's figure out and stay positive. But it's not easy right now, that's sure.
Okay, thank you. A combination question for each of you. First, maybe we can start with Faye, Miriam, and then Emilie. So the first question is, what turns you off? Like, how many emails are too many emails when a filmmaker is trying to contact you? And the follow-up question to that is, what's a film that you've seen recently, doesn't have to be from South Asia, that blew you away and that you would like to recommend the audience to watch?
Ooh, difficult questions. I think what's quite important to realize that since we are dealing with 800 applicants a year, that yeah, my most annoying thing is if people ask questions that are clearly on the website. So I think it's quite important to do your homework. And then, you know, if you have a question that really you can't find the answer to, we're always really happy to help. But I think it really helps if people take the time to go. We have a frequently asked questions section on our website that's quite elaborate. If you find a question that's obvious that's not on there, you can always email us and then we put it on there. I think that's happened a few times. But do your research is, I think, the most important thing I could say about that. Regarding the film, that's a difficult one. Can I come back to that?
Okay. So yes, I guess it has to do with the answer from Faye also. We often receive emails with a dossier or a link to a project, and then a filmmaker says, "So this is my film. What do I need to do?" And yeah, that is it leaves the whole work on our side. So it is best if you do your research and you also prepare very specific questions that you have on the submission process, or if you wish to have feedback or yeah, just specific questions, and also maybe a little bit of a background about the project, or why you are looking for submitting your project at the World Cinema Fund. And I am not sure if I mentioned this before, but I just wanted to make clear that we support both narrative fiction and documentary, and also we like to say everything in between. So also experimental formats, and just also with animation and everything that could fall under moving image. And also a thing that the question did come up in the past about the past work of the director. If the director has done short films, then this is also fine, as long as we can see some work as a director that has been done. The World Cinema Fund is not intended for only first or second time filmmakers, so also if more films have been done in the past. And a film that I just saw in the program from your festival is The Fever, so that would be my recommendation, just because I found it a very yes, a very, very beautiful and strong film, and if it's in the program, then you should all watch it if you can.
Thank you, Miriam. Emilie?
Yes, for the things that bother us, of course, they said everything. Not wasting our times, of course, but also not being honest. Yeah, that's a waste of energy and disappointing, and no use to make up things or to try to hide. Better be true and try to build something together on that basis. And on the films, I would say, of course, Fever also was one of La Fabrique, and Yalda was La Fabrique too, and I would recommend both of them. I would also recommend the first movie of Yalda's director, A Respectable Family, which is games in terms of scenario, and yeah, it's very, very brilliant film, Respectable Family, Masoud Bakshi. And I would also promote, but I don't know when you will see it, maybe next year at DIF, a film that was at La Fabrique a long time ago in 2013 from Nora Martirosyan. She's from Armenia. And the film is called If the Wind Fall. And it takes place, but it was not designed to be out right now, but it's just, as a matter of fact, incredible. But it takes place in Karabakh region, territory, which is a place of war, actually, from like a few weeks ago. It's fire again in that place, but the film is so poetical with it's a tiny budget, but yeah, very, very strong and poetic, and with mixing professional and non-professional actors. So a great film to watch, to discover.
Shall I then finish with my recommendation?
Yeah.
Because I'll recommend also a film that's in the DIF program. That's called Air Conditioner by Sadiq. It's from Angola, and it's made by I say the director's name, but it's actually made by Collective. It's called Generation 80, and they are a group of filmmakers from Angola who revolve roles in their teams. And the film is about a situation where all of a sudden air conditioners start to fall and break down, and it's a kind of epidemic. So I guess it's also relevant in these times, and it has really beautiful music. And it shows city life in Angola, which is not something that I personally have seen before. And I feel it's a really original film. So that would be my recommendation.
Well, thank you all of you for your time and for outlining everything that your funds do. So one of the key message takeaways is authenticity of the project, honesty, the director's vision, and doing your research. So I would highly recommend everyone to go to each of these funds' websites, look at the frequently asked questions, look at the sample entry form, and just know what kind of materials you need to connect. Another good way to also understand the submission process is to talking to filmmakers who have previously applied and gotten the fund. I think that you should use that as a resource as you work on your own applications. So thank you to Faye, Emilie, and Miriam for joining us. Everyone who is attending, I would really recommend you check out some of these films that our panelists have recommended, and please keep an eye on DIF's programming and the other talks and panels that are coming up. DIF has just introduced a new pass called the Binge Pass, which will allow you to watch a certain number of films for the rest of the festival. So if you feel like you haven't actually gotten a pass yet, maybe that's a pass you might want to explore. So thank you, everyone. And I hope all of you have a good rest of your day and rest of your week.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Shrihari. Thank you, DIF.
Thank you, and hopefully see you next time.